So during this video, I'm going to introduce you to another built-in function within Microsoft Excel called the subtotal function. Now, this is still this function, still a database function, something you work with inside of a vertical list, just like the dsum or daverage or dcount functions. But this one's going to have one huge difference between what we just did and what the subtotal function can do for you. Now, in the end, it's going to give you very similar results, the output value, but the way that you work with it is a bit different. So it really comes down to really the structure of your data, what you want to do with that data, and even preference. Which function should I use? So take a look. This is Excel's subtotal function. Now, to really nail this one down and to explain exactly what's happening here, I'm going to tweak the design of my worksheet here. So I'm going to go up and select cell or row 1. I'm just going to click on the row header there. I'm going to right click and I'm going to insert 2 rows. So I'll right click a second time and insert. And just to make it a little bit bigger, I'll increase the width, the height of that row 1. And I'm going to hop over to cell E1 and I'm going to drop in, at least to start with, I'm going to drop in just a regular old sum function. That's it. What I want to do here is get a sum of the total sales. So I'll go to E1. I'm going to type in equals sum, open parentheses, and I'm going to grab F4. Remember, I added those couple of rows there. F4, Control Shift down arrow to F61. We've now got the entire range. If the shortcut key didn't work for you, you can click and drag or type that in. F4 to F61. I'll hit my enter key, and there's my sum. Let's just make this a little bit bigger just so you can see it on my screen. There we go, and I'll make that bold for fun. All right, so we got $1,428,320 summing up the total sales column. Now, already that sum function did the entire column. The dsum function that we worked with just a few videos ago summed up the total sales column, but it did it based on criteria, right? And that criteria was inside of a cell someplace. It had to have a header, like the category here. That header had to match the header inside the list. And then we had the criteria directly below in an adjacent cell. Now, here comes the subtotal function. I'm going to hop over into F1. I'm going to put them right next door to the sum function just so we can do some comparison. Now I'm going to start to type this one out. I'm going to say equals subtotal. There it is. I'll give it a double click. All right, there's my subtotal function. Now it's asking me for 2 things. And just to make this easier, I'll go hit the FX button. Here's my argument window. It's got 2 arguments. It wants to know the function num. What type of subtotal do you want? Do you want a sum? Do you want an average? Do you want a count? What type of subtotal do you want Excel to perform on your data? The next thing it wants to know is ref1, or your reference, your first reference. What's the range of cells that you want to subtotal? All right, now for function name, if I look down below it, it says, hey, function name is the number 1 to 11. It's actually more than 11. That specifies the summary function for the subtotal. So essentially, Excel says, you want a sum? Then I need a specific number that represents that sum. If you want an average, well, there's a number that represents average. If you click the link, help on this function, mine just opened up over here. This little help window will give you everything about the subtotal function. If I scroll down, there's a nice little table with function num, here's the numbers, and their associated function. So if I put a number 1 inside the function num, number 1 here, it will include hidden rows, and it'll do an average. If I do a number 2, it'll do a count. If I do a number 9, it'll do a sum. So those are your function nums. They've also got 101 to 111, the exact same function. The only difference is these numbers over here, 1 to 11, include hidden values. This one ignores hidden values. So you hide rows, right? You go right click a row and you hide it. One will ignore it and one will include it. All right. So for our first example here, I'm going to use a number 9. So I'm going to move that out of the way. I'm going to drop in a number 9, which is the sum. And for my reference, I'm going to grab the same reference that our sum function did. I'll click on F4, Control Shift down arrow. So we got F4 to F61. We're using the number 9, which is your sum. I'll hit OK. And we've got the exact same value. Let's format that as currency, $1,428,320. Exactly the same. Well, why would you use that then? And that just seemed like more work than the sum function, right? Because you had to know the function number, you had to know the associated function that goes along with that number. So it was a bit more work. But watch this. So I'm going to click into my lists. And what I'm going to do is filter the list by a division. So I'll click into the list, doesn't matter where. I'll go to Data, Filter. I get the little drop downs there. I'm going to go to Division. And I don't want every division. So I'm going to uncheck Select All. And I'll grab East. And I'm going to hit OK. And watch my functions. I've now filtered the list, which changed my range here to just East records, and my subtotal updated. My sum function is like, whoa, I don't know what just happened, right? I still got 1,428,000, right? But the subtotal function, that one updates when you do your filter. Very cool, very cool. Now, I said that the outcome is very similar between the subtotal and the dsum function or daverage. The biggest difference is you got to filter the list in order for the subtotal to really do its job. Give me a subtotal of East records for total sales. We got to filter the list. The dsum, that didn't require that because the criteria was built out here. So like I said, very similar in end results, but pretty drastically different in the way that it's created and the way that you implement it. And this is your subtotal function. Try this one out. I created the extra rows up there just to give myself some space. So just watch for that. We don't want to put them over here because when you start filtering the list, then it might get filtered out. It might disappear. So just watch for that there. All right, try out Excel's subtotal function. I did a number 9 for some, but you try a number 1 or a number 2 or one of the other ones in there. Try it out.